Hey Murray,
What's up?
as soon as I'm done measuring this up, I need to get on the other car over there. Can you get me the interior screws for the car with IRS?
Like Internal Revenue Services?
No, definitely not. So I need to clarify some things to you as well as everyone else out there that may not know what we're talking about. So this video is going to be basic shop talk on
Rear suspension.
all things rear suspension. A great place to start is independent rear suspension. Now, this is a rear-wheel drive car. This type of suspension can be in a front-wheel drive car. It's going to be just ignoring that there's actually a drive member in the middle of it. So the differential, what you would see in a rear-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive car, it is mounted. It has some cushion in it, but it is basically solid mounted to the bottom of the car. And so this differential is actually a very high performance one. It's a Ford 9-inch. And the unique thing about it is, compared to a solid axle, which we'll look at later, is this stays put when the suspension travels up and down. And this kind of suspension is used in a car that would be like a road race car or drift car, or just your normal daily driver. A lot of cars now use independent rear suspension. It's very, very stable. This suspension allows for excellent cornering and to keep the contact of the tires when you're in a big corner still flat on the ground. Now, what we have is this differential, and then we have a axle, and these are CV joints, so constant velocity joints, and these allow movement up and down when the rear wheel goes up and down. Now we have different manufacturers do it differently, but they have a different system of arms to stabilize the knuckle. This knuckle, it is going straight up and down on the road, or like to follow the contour of the road, and it holds the hub, which drives the rear wheels, and the brakes are attached. In this case here, because we're setting it up, normally there would be a coilover in here. And the reason we have this bar in here is because we're building this car and we want to have the road height or the ride height permanently set. So we take out the coilover, which is a shock absorber with a spring over it. And it normally bolts in here to take up the suspension travel. And so we know what the designed ride height is and the length of that is. So we just put a bar in place to hold that. So while we modify and build this car, that is a set point. It's a really basic, very common setup. And it's not necessarily the best for drag racing. If you get into drag racing, you're going to end up having, a lot of guys will change this to a solid axle with different types of 4-link or leaf spring suspension, and that's what we should get to next. Not a race car exactly, but we are at a different kind of suspension that is really seriously common, and it's used in all sorts of vehicles. What are we looking at here?
A leaf spring.
A leaf spring, and it is in an old F-150. Well, actually, this is a F-100, actually, I believe it is, 4x4. So this leaf spring suspension, can you tell me about the front attachment point on the frame?
It's solid?
Yeah, it's a fixed attachment point. So the front of the spring actually holds the rear solid axle. If we look in there, this has the solid axle. So this axle, when one wheel moves, it tips the other wheel. So it kind of acts like a teeter-totter. What happens if I put a really lots of leaf springs in a solid leaf spring in this? What is the vehicle going to ride like?
Really solid.
Really solid. What if I put a really light leaf spring in it?
Then it'll be really flexy.
Cushiony.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the leaf springs are actually the spring part of the vehicle. The leaf spring holds the vehicle up. And this still has a shock absorber. It's a different style of shock absorber because it doesn't have a spring over it. This shock absorber, what it does is it actually absorbs the compression and extension. So it is a fluid-filled hydraulic cylinder that has valves in it. So if it didn't have a shock in, you'd go over a bump and your vehicle would wave like the ocean forever. Well, what a shock absorber does, it absorbs all those and levels it out. So when you go over a bump, that shock absorber controls how much bounce it has, and that helps keep the road on the tire. So all shock absorbers, the purpose of an shock absorber on a normal vehicle going down the road is to help keep the tire have lots of contact with the road so that we have good traction. In a race car, we're going to have adjustable shocks, so we can adjust how fast they extend or compress, and it's different from vehicle to vehicle. Now, what can you tell me about the back of this leaf spring? What is this thing called back here? Do you remember?
No.
So it's a shackle. Okay, so this thing here, the leaf spring is actually got a pivot in the back, and because as this leaf spring flattens out, it gets longer. So the shackle allows the leaf spring to grow in length. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. Okay, so on this track, if we go around a corner, do you know what might help this truck not have body roll? We've never talked about this before, I don't think. But do you know what would stop this thing from having body roll going around a corner?
No.
Okay, so it's called a anti-roll bar or a sway bar. And what that does is it attaches to the frame. I think we'll possibly see one somewhere in here. I think we got one in. Anyway, what it does is it's a bar that goes across, and it is a spring in itself, and it attaches to both sides. So it is a solid spring attaching to both sides. It does have spring to it, but when the vehicle goes around a corner and leans on one side, what the sway bar does is as this one moves, it pulls the other side. So that when it goes around a corner, instead of trying to body roll, if it didn't have it like this truck, that spring pulls one side to follow the other side. It doesn't do it at the same rate, but what it's doing is trying to keep that vehicle level. Pretty cool, eh? Mm-hmm. We're looking at an old Dodge here, and Dodges, if anyone's familiar with it, this actually has leaf springs in it as well. And it is a brand new set of super stock leaf springs. There's tons of videos on it, but the spring rates from side to side on super stock springs change, as well as the rate from front to back change. And that brings us to the next thing, which is CalTrax. This is a Calvert Racing CalTrax setup. This is all disassembled on the floor, and what I'm going to do is put a picture off of their website of what this looks like assembled. I'm going to do my best to explain it so that you can understand. Now, we looked at these other leaf springs, and they were multi-pack leaf springs. That means that they had a bunch of layers of leaf springs. But if you look at this leaf spring, it is considered a mono leaf, but it actually has two leaf springs that are attached together. So it's actually called a split mono leaf spring. So what that means is the front of the spring has a different weight carrying capacity than the rear of the spring. And so that is designed so that this suspension works really well. So it's called spring rate. So the front of the spring and the back of the spring has a different spring rate.
And why might that be?
Well, in drag racing, we don't want the differential to wind up, because that's what happens. We'll lose traction. So the differential is trying to twist out of the car. And what this does is it prevents some of that twist. But the cool thing about a CalTrax is to prevent the twist on a CalTrax, we actually have this setup. I guess first I'll back up. The differential of the car, so we have that solid axle, and we have a center bolt, and there's a little notch in the bottom of that solid axle where the saddle gets bolted to here, and then this gets bolted underneath the axle. And this is where the shock absorber mounts up to the car, okay? And what the purpose of this is this all gets sandwiched together, the differential, the leaf spring, and this mount. And So this setup goes in a Mustang II. And Calvert Racing doesn't even make a part number for it, but they're great to work with. We're not affiliated with them at all. I just really like using them. So what they did is they custom made us these bottom mounts, and they made them actually more adjustable than normal. Now, getting back to the question that you were asking about the different rates and twist, well, what they built for us is this is their normal front mount, and this mounts underneath the car, and you can reference that picture that we're going to have up. But it mounts right into the front of the leaf spring, and then this solid bar goes onto here as well as onto here. And so when the car twists, when the differential is trying to twist, this bar keeps it dead level. Because if we can keep that differential from twisting and unloading, we keep the tires planted on the ground, and this thing is fast. So this is a race suspension, can be totally street driven, but instead of taking the back of the car apart and cutting out like how we did in Rick's car, doing all that cutting up stuff and adding a whole bunch of adjustment to it, we can take and unbolt the leaf springs and bolt a Calvert Racing back end in, and there are a lot of fast cars that pull the wheels with factory leaf spring suspension with this Calvert setup added to it. And the nice thing about this setup for drag racing depends on whether we're running the rink wall slicks or the radials, like how Rick's car has the two different tires. We can set this up to have dig, so that what that means is the back of the car sits down and squishes that slick and takes all the weight of the car and plants that slick. And the tire itself is working like suspension and springing us out. With a radial car, which Rick likes to run and which we're wanting to do radial, we need the differential to actually get pounded into the ground and the car to lift. So that's called separation. So these rear mounts, you see there's a bunch of adjustment on these mounts so that we can adjust the bar angle, because that adjusts dig and lift. And they added these extra holes, which is a normal thing on some of their suspension, but they made the Mustang II kit and they added these to it for us so that we can make this car be a radial car. So we're going to be able to have this car separate and pound those radials into the ground so that it takes off quick. Having this all laid out on the ground and explained it, is that good, or do you have any other questions in regards to this?
I think we're good.
Got it covered. Next thing we're going to go to is, I guess, a factory style race setup that they didn't even know they were doing. We are underneath an old Chevelle, but I'm going to talk about a couple other suspensions that we'll show pictures of. First of all, it's C10 suspension, which is trailing arm suspension, and we'll show some pictures of that. What it is it's some bars, like in this car, they're just bottom bars that are bolted to the differential. Very different than this, but you'll see in the pictures. It uses coil springs and shock absorbers. Very good truck suspension. If you're racing, it works really well there as well. Then the other one is like an F-body Camaro. You can look up what that is, but it has adjustable rear bars and a big torque arm that bolts to the differential and goes to the front of the car. Super adjustable, good suspension for racing. We'll throw some pictures of Ricky's car in there on the stuff that we did. But we are underneath a 69 Chevelle. Mm-hmm. What do we have under here? Suspension, yeah, let's talk about it. First of all, let's talk about those things right there. What are those right there?
We got some coil springs.
Okay, and what do the coil springs, what does that coil spring actually do?
Holds the weight of the car.
Absolutely. And what if we go over a big bump and we don't have these on here? What are these?
Those are shock absorbers.
And what are they going to do?
Make sure it's not bumpy.
Yeah, it's going to make sure that the bumps don't continue on. It's going to take that shock out of it. And the main purpose of those shocks, again, like we talked about, is to keep the tire on the
ground.
Absolutely. All right, what else do we know about the suspension? We covered the coils, we covered the shocks. What else do we have? What do we have in here? There's links.
Yeah, triangulated.
Yeah, it's a triangulated. And how many links is there?
4.
Yeah, let's show our viewers.
Step here. We've got a long bar and a short bar, and they form a triangle.
And we have it on both sides.
Yes.
Okay, can I ask you a question? Is why are we using, what's the purpose of having the triangulated 4-link?
So it doesn't move.
The car doesn't have side-to-side movement because those triangles are keeping the differential straight in the car? Perfect. I'm just going to cover racing suspension really quick.
Okay, don't get into far detail. If we want to get into some of those more complicated ones, drop a comment. We can make another video about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really quickly, racing stuff, the bars are straight in there. And there's a track bar to hold the differential straight in the vehicle. And so we'll show a quick picture of the QA1 stuff. Fair enough? All right. By advice, wise advice from you, I've really had to stop my OCD. I have to say everything world. What do you have questions about our rear suspension? Anything that you think that we missed today?
I think we covered her pretty good, but if you guys have any more questions about anything we missed or any other videos about it, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, please like, share, and subscribe.